I want to cycle back just briefly to the questions about the audit. I moved here from a big city, and we had an independent city auditor, and I think that's not something that we have. But I really like this document for your Missouri Quality Award to keep looking at the needs for improvement. And so I hope that that's part of the budget process. And it talks about systems for comparing data, et cetera. And we're a city that's done a lot of growth quickly, so I think we need to kind of, giddy up a little bit on our systemic approach to things. So I'm not going to read that again, but I think that's very important. I also have a question about the transfers that are at the bottom of each council meeting, and I saw some transfers going from personnel for unspent money from the police department going to some other expenses, and so I would like to see from perhaps maybe 2012 to this year how much of that surplus money has been transferred for other expenses. And I ask that because we're told that we need so many more officers, and they're not able to spend the money that they have in their budget. So I just need to have a better understanding of that. I want to also comment about the public records request and the CPBR meeting this past week, and that Fox said two things that he learned about the public that the public wants, and that's cops, and he was slow to add philosophy. RMF will tell you it's all about the philosophy. How is it that so many recommendations that we've had from the Mayor's Task Force on Community Violence, the listening tour, and NAACP meetings, and it's not included an understanding of what the community wants? And can we see those notes that are taken at those meetings? Because those didn't come in my records request. Why have those voices been silent? Silence was Fox's response when addressed by a CPRB member who said that racial disparities and addressing VSR data should be part of community-oriented policing. He literally stood still and did not speak until another CPBR member ended that awkwardness and asked another question. Why is philosophy not a part of his plan? He did not discuss how a philosophy might affect the mission statement or policies. And I think it's really important. The police department needs to talk about their internal mission of how they're going to transform. It's not about telling just about what we want. You have serial historical data that shows that you have unhappiness in your police department. You have a cultural problem, right? And we've failed to solve it. Right, and it's getting more complicated. So the philosophy is not just about policing, but it's about how the organization is going to transform itself. Fox's suggestion for community-oriented policing are all currently being done, he says. School resource officers, coffee with a cop, Xbox with a cop, social media to show how officers bring an extra lunch to work each day for a homeless man. Fox wants new, better social media usage by CPD so they can control the narrative about policing. See an email link he sent to Mathis. He praised a community outreach program at Cary, North Carolina, which offers officers get to decide to get to know African-American men better by going into barbershops on Fridays and Saturdays to have difficult conversations. And that's not easy, says Fox, shaking his head. After the next officer-related shooting, a death of a black man in that town, the barbershop connections were really helpful and supportive for the police officers. Fox does not include this idea for his plan of CPD's community-oriented policing. Fox acknowledged that COU has succeeded in decreasing calls for service, which is his main reason for not wanting to increase the number of cops, as related to getting to know a community. Fox does not recommend this plan for community-oriented policing. Fox also says that decreases in calls for service mirrors a nationwide trend in decreasing crime for the past 25 years, while calls for service have increased as PDs have become like a 24-hour social service access. Fox does not suggest increasing social services in his plan. What I do want to say is we spend a big chunk of our general fund on public safety. And I would challenge this council when the budgets come up to figure out, to rethink the way we think about policing, because we can't police ourselves out of the trouble that we're in, and we have to spend more money on people. We can't afford to spend more, spend less and expect more. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Any additional public?